Together we are but first coffee. Susie's just our host, but what matters most is we are a team. Together we are all safe here, and so are you. Among friends and mods we are safe. We talk about trauma, break down drama of life, death, happy or sad, even mad. We discuss it all here. Together we will thrive, not just survive. We will dry each other's tears, celebrate big or small wins, and chase away the fears. Together we fight cults or fight addictions, if not with experience, with love, and we don't judge. Please understand, this is a safe place to land. Please understand, you're not alone. This is a safe place to land. Together we thrive, not just survive. We will dry each other's tears, celebrate big or small wins, and chase away the fears. Because we are but first coffee, and Susie welcomes us all here. Together we are but first coffee, and Susie.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's good to see everyone. I see a few people coming in. Yeah, it's a little bit later. I had one earlier that was way earlier than normal, and one that was now this one's later. So I'm thinking I'm gonna try to get for the summer anyway, I'm gonna try to get in about the 6 central time in there somewhere. That gives me time to do stuff that I need to do during the day and then get back here. So I if that doesn't work for people, then I'll try to figure out something. Nothing's gonna work for everybody, but seriously, if anybody has an idea of a really great time, let me know. If, you need to get a hold of me for anything, my email address is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. So, feel free to contact me with show information or anything, just anything you wanna talk about, you just wanna chat. I'm kinda slow sometimes to answer. Sometimes I answer back almost immediately, and sometimes it takes me 2, 3, maybe 4 days. Usually, it's a lot quicker than that, but not always. So, I'm just letting you know that. I just am really excited tonight. We've got Hockeytown John on here, and we are gonna talk about mental health for men, and this is Men's Mental Health Month, which is really cool. It's also Pride Month, so that's cool too. And, anyway, I'm gonna check in with the chat, and then we're gonna bring John onto the screen and get started because we got a lot of good stuff to cover. So, Mischief is here. She's in the back. She will be starring comments, and you all did so good earlier with putting, question or comment or Q's and C's or whatever before your questions and comments that you need me to see. I would really appreciate it if you would keep doing that. It makes it so much easier for her because so much of the time you all are just chatting amongst yourself, and I love that. But I don't necessarily need to read that out, and then it just takes longer for the live to get through. So, anyway, I always try to go back and be nosy later, but I don't always have to read it on screen unless the chat's not real big, and then sometimes I will just because I am that nosy. I wanna know what y'all are talking about. So, thank you, Mischief, for being here. Also, while I'm thinking about it, thank you, John, for being here. And, David, good to see you as always. Lynn, good morning to you too. It is evening here and morning there. Heat My Shorts is making some dinner. Gonna prep and eat and listen. Good to see you here. Mare is here. Thank you so much. So let's see here. Not many people chatting. Hey, Joel. Good to see you too. I was talking about you earlier, and I can't remember why now. Oh, well, it was good, I promise. Ooh, I see something about diamonds. Yeah, very cool. Wow. That's very nice, Joel. Diamond necklace. That's so nice. You're always so sweet. Yeah, yellow, gold, single stone. Yeah, what color? What how many stones? What we got going on here? Hey Vernon, hello. How are you? Good to see you. Yeah. Vernon says, I take medication for anxiety and depression and it's helping me. Good. That's great. I take a medication for anxiety, but I take it right now she just has me on a as I need it. Like I don't have to take it all the time. But I think I'm just gonna have her just however she needs to work it to where I can just take it all the time because I, I like how I feel just kind of zen whenever I take it. I don't feel like stressed, but I don't feel like numb either. I just kind of feel like, okay. Mm, yeah. So many men, you're right, Mayor. So many men do try to tough it out. I am a proponent of whatever it takes. I mean, that's not hurting you. So, like, if you need some kind of medication or something, take it. And you're right, men do. They just try to tough it out. So, Vernon wants to know how the weather is in Oklahoma. Well, right now it is 76 degrees and it says light rain. I don't know if it's actually doing it right now. I can't tell, but it's supposed to, and it's been looking like it was going to. So, it's been beautiful all day. It's been really a good day. Kind of overcast, but beautiful. Lori Driscoll says she's just 2 minutes behind. You got it made, girl. You got it made. Yeah, Stacia, I agree. I hope she enjoys retirement, Joel. That is cool. I love mine. I'm a big fan, and I keep trying to get Mark to do it. I don't know. He says if he works, I think 2 more years, and he gets more on his Social Security, so he keeps trying to but he keeps saying that. He's like, "If I work this, then I get this, and then, if I work this, and I get that." But I don't remember if he, like, taps out, if it's at the highest or what it is, if he goes 2 more years, but he's liking the idea of it. Yeah. Once a witness burn says 6 or 7 is great for people in Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, I bet it would be. Well, me and my mouse, I don't know what the deal is. Oh, really? David says Oklahoma Heartmend helped me get out of a great dark hole of grief. Great. That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad that you got that help. I agreed, Mayor. I'm glad he did. We are gonna have some interesting information, I think, and you know, wow, see? I'm so proud of you guys and also just speaking up. Oh, please do not be ashamed. Heat My Short says, I take meds for depression and anxiety too. I used to be so ashamed of that. Not anymore. I was too. And I can imagine that it's even worse for men because y'all think you got to be tough. So we don't need you to be tough. We just want you to be okay. That's the truth. We really do. We just want you to be okay. And if that means you take a pill, you take a pill. So Vernon says, had a friend who was a member of the Jehovah Witnesses and he had schizophrenia and he ended it. I'm sorry. Yeah. He was 25. Oh my goodness. That is so sad. Got it when he was 15. Yeah, that I'm so sorry. But see, this is why it's so good that we talk about these things and not just us. I mean, there's a lot of people that are talking about it now and it's getting so much easier to talk about. It's just amazing. Oh, my nose itches. It's not even running, it just itches. Yeah. Mhm. David says it was misty this morning, but sunny and warm now in T-Town. Yeah, it's kind of been the opposite here. Like we're west of T-Town. So, um, yeah, it's kind of been, well, I mean, it was kind of cloudy, but it was, really pretty and warm. And then now it's kind of misty. So, Joel says most of the time when people talk about me, it has the words crazy, wild, or things I cannot say. It's better than the ones they say about me. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Music is one of my favorite ways to deal with moods. Yeah, absolutely. Me too. Music can just, I mean, it can really do well, they have music therapy, just like art therapy. When I really need to just completely decompress, I'll paint because that just I don't think about anything but whatever I'm painting, like whatever if I'm painting flowers or a cow or I don't have a whole lot of different things that I paint, but I do a lot of animals. I do a few like kind of crazy looking pictures of celebrities and stuff. I need to do one of Miscavige, but I just don't know if I wanna put that much work into him. So, I'm lucky I don't suffer anxiety or depression. I have many friends who do. I talk to them all the time about how they're feeling. Stacia, that's so nice. That's it sounds like that's what you're here for. I think, like, you didn't get any of that because God knew that you were gonna be the one that talked to everybody else. So, kinda talk your friends, down from their problems and stuff. That's awesome. So, this is a good question, and I do not know. I do not know. Do you think mental illness can or will be cured? I just don't know. I never say never because it just seems like that if we think about the things that they can do now versus what they could do 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it's amazing. So, I kind of, I don't ever say never, but I don't know. That is such a good question. I wish that we had like a mental health professional. We needed Keela, right? But I don't think she's feeling good. She may end up here, so yeah, Heat My Short says, "Yes, art is in general is therapy." Absolutely. Absolutely. I knew this was gonna be somewhere, and I figured it was either gonna be you or Heat. I was like, "One of them's gonna make this one," after I said that. I tried to paint a cow once, but he kept moving. "Joel, you mess." Ugh, oh, my nose. It is. Mm, well, goodness. Okay, looks like we are close. Yeah, funny, Joel. Ha ha. Yes. Heat says, I treasure my mental health and struggles. They have made me who I am. Absolutely. They absolutely can. I mean, things can be kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time. Yeah. Your friends are lucky, Stacia. I agree, Lynn. I agree. Stacia listens to music to sleep. Yeah. On the way to work and home again. Yeah, I do too. If I go someplace, I've always got the radio unless it's me and Mark talking or something. But even then, a lot of time I got the radio on and we'll have that XM radio or whatever. And I'll be singing and dancing and he's talking. He just every once in a while just looks at me. He'll go into the bank and he'll come out and I'll just be really, getting after it, sitting there dancing in the seat to some song. He just is like, oh God. Yeah, absolutely. Back in the day, they would put mentally ill people in the asylums. Yeah. Isn't that sad? It is sad. I mean, I don't know. So sad. A lot of stuff that happened back in the day is just awful. Well, y'all, I'm going to bring my partner in crime out here and we are going to get started. We are about 15 minutes in, and I don't know how long this is going to go, but we will see. I'm going to try to you know, cut it kinda short since we're getting late or early, depending on where you're at. Yeah. John, 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 yeah. Yeah, Joel's, out here chanting for you, John, so I better bring you out here. Hey. Oh, I can't hear you. Can't hear you.
I don't know about that how long we're gonna go thing. You got a couple of chatterboxes here, but I'm sure mischief will keep us under control.
Were you here earlier when she popped in and was like, "It's a quarter till."
Yes.
I thought, "But I'm
Yeah.
having fun, mommy." She's not old enough to be my mom, but, I'm just like,
That's true.
"No, big
How
meanie."
are you tonight, my dear friend?
I'm doing good. I've got a little bit of a headache, so if I seem a
Aw,
little off, that's what it is, but it's getting a little bit better. I'm just drinking some more coffee,
alright, good.
adding more caffeine to it, and then I won't sleep, but I won't have a headache.
Right. Well, we'll jump off that bridge when we get to
Yeah.
it. One
We're
thing at a
gonna worry
time.
about the headache now.
Right.
We're gonna worry about the headache now, we'll worry about the sleep later. I guess I have these
Mhm.
they're sleep gummies, and they're just like they're not gummy. I mean, they're gummies, but they're not that kind of gummies. But anyway, my
Yeah,
husband's all which I would take those, no big
I
deal.
do
But anyway, my
religiously.
husband's always like, "You need to start taking those gummies again," because he'll roll over, be like 3 in the morning, and I'm just laying there messing with my
Staring
iPad,
at the ceiling.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
or
can be a
playing
little
with the
jarring
dog.
in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll, like, see like, if I'll, like, squint one eye, like, closed, and the other one just a little bit and look at the ceiling, and I'll see, like, carnival lights and stuff on the
Mhm.
ceiling, so it's fun. Telling all my secrets. Can you
Yeah, I was
imagine the
gonna say.
trolls?
I can hear it
Susie
now.
sees carnival lights at night. She's I'd be like, "They're not
Oh,
real."
God.
"Well, we don't care."
Right.
Says you.
Never the troll motto is never let the truth get in the way of a good story, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But anyway, so what are we gonna talk about? Do you have something you wanna start off with, or
Tonight, we are going
what are
to
we getting
talk about a
into?
very important topic, something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that's men's mental health. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm
Absolutely.
kind of I'm kind of on loan to you tonight from the Mental Health Matters channel, where we
Yeah.
normally would be talking about stuff like this, but the community is growing exponentially, and we want to make sure we get the word out to as many people as possible.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
I did have one thing here that I wanted to bring up if I can. And just real quick to kind of
Mhm.
set us where we need to go.
Mhm.
I can find it. It's going to be right here. Okay, let's share that. All right. So it says
Mhm.
June is men's mental health month. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll read it because I'm sure a lot of you can't see the small print, but basically it says 3 times as many men as women die by unaliving. Men are wrongly taught at a young age expressing emotion is weak. And that's something that we'll talk about in more detail.
Absolutely.
Men aged 40 to 49 have the highest S rates. Men
Mhm.
report lower levels of life satisfaction than women. We'll
Mm.
talk more about that as well. Men are
Yeah.
less likely to seek medical help than women. And a lot of that goes
Wow.
back to that whole we're taught at a young age to,
Absolutely.
expressing emotion is weak. Any kind of weakness, seeking any kind
Mhm.
of help is weakness. And the statistics
Well,
bear
and
this
they
out.
act like that mental health is like a foo-foo kinda thing, like it's
Yeah, it's some
like
kind of
it's
new
not.
age, yeah,
Yeah,
some
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
new age hippie
And I'm
thing.
like, "No, it's technically very serious, and it can affect a whole lot of physical health things."
It is. It really and it can.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
statistics bear this out. I mean, over 500,000 men every year unalive themselves.
It's so bad. Ugh.
10,096 men per week. 1,442 men every day.
Can you
Think about that.
imagine? It just is
60 men every
mm,
hour. 1 man every 60 seconds. That is shocking and I think in large part preventable.
yeah, that means
And
like 20 men since we've been on here.
yeah, just in the short time we've been doing this.
Yeah.
And I know that this is a subject that's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. It is to me.
Mhm.
It's affected a lot of people that we know.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that education is the key. Um, Telling men that it's okay to not be okay
Yeah.
and being there, you know, not just assuming that men are those rocks that they were built to be and that they don't feel anything and everything just bounces
Mhm.
off.
I know it.
Sometimes just being there to listen and to let them know that it's okay. And I
Mhm.
think education is going to
And
be a big part of that.
I think that it's important for other men to tell other men that
Yes,
it's
and
okay.
that is something that we're going to talk about a little bit
Yeah,
later on after we
I really do. I
look
think
at
that
the stuff
that's
that you
important.
have. That's
I
one of
mean,
the most
I think
important
it's
things. Education is
yeah,
important, and also men letting each other know that I'm not gonna think any less of you as a man if you show
yeah,
me emotion. Yeah, exactly.
absolutely.
So, basically,
Wow.
the thing that really stood out to me aside from the numbers is the old mantra, "Man up."
Mhm.
That's not the thing anymore. It's not about
No,
man up, it's about speak up.
absolutely.
Don't be afraid to tell your spouse, your significant other, your best friend, whoever,
Absolutely.
just somebody at work. I mean, it you can't we can't keep it hidden anymore because the numbers are just telling a completely different story. It's not working,
Yeah.
and we really need to start putting some importance on it.
Yeah, we absolutely do. I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. I
Mhm.
It is something else. And I don't mean by any stretch of the imagination to belittle the power of prayer because I am a prayerful person, you
I
know?
am as well.
But we can't always leave it all up to prayer.
No.
Sometimes I think God is saying, dude, go get some medicine, go see the doctor. You know, he gives us the tools, but you know, to we've got free will and we got to use it to go get the help. And
Mhm.
absolutely, if you're a prayerful person or a whatever is your thing, do that. But it is no shame to actually get medical attention too.
No. No
And
shame.
no
And for
shame.
too long, we've been taught that there's nothing but shame in that,
Yeah.
and we need to change that mindset for sure.
Hmm. Absolutely. Rub some dirt on it. That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I have so many thoughts running through my mind and so many, different scenarios of people that I've known in my life where the men have had serious mental health issues, and I don't mean like all the, obias kind of things, all these
Mhm.
phobias and all that kind of. I'm talking about just anxiety, depression, just, you know, anger management issues, just
Mhm.
like the normal things that we just seem to ignore. Once they get to the great big things, a lot of times they kind of demand attention. Not always, but a lot of times they do. But these
Yeah.
little, quote unquote little things are huge too.
Yeah.
And I think that men just think that if they're angry, that's just part of being a man. No, it's not. You shouldn't be
Mm-mm.
angry all the time. If
No.
you're depressed, it's because you're working so hard. No, working so hard should make you tired, but
Mhm.
not depressed.
No.
If you've got troubles at work, yes, it can make you anxious, but you shouldn't have crippling anxiety over things.
Right. And
There's
I th and Susie, I think that's another thing that, is misunderstood about men's mental health is that usually the specific mental health disorders that men have manifest themselves differently than they do in women.
Mhm,
When you talk about depression and substance abuse and
mhm,
PTSD and bipolar disorder, a lot of those things will manifest themselves differently. And
mhm.
like you say, men are so programmed to just
Yeah,
adjust to whatever's
mhm,
thrown at them. and they'll say, "Well, I'm not depressed, I'm just this," or, whatever. And they'll try to tie any factor that they can to it other than a mental health issue
Mhm.
because we're wired that way, from birth, we're
Yeah.
programmed that that is not something that we do. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
identifying the signs is different among
Mhm.
men than it is with women.
Yeah. It's kinda, I mean, men and women just they are different. And
Hmm.
it's kinda like women, we associate every time we have a pain, we just think it has something to do with our ovaries. We just, it just has something to do with that. And
Right.
so we just kinda blow it off, and that's why, so many women end up with cancer with their reproductive organs, is because they have
Hmm.
just ignored it and ignored it and ignored it, and
Right.
until it can't be ignored anymore. And
Hmm.
it's the same with men with a lot of the mental health things is they just ignore it and ignore it because they honestly think, this is if I just work harder or if I just, whatever, it's gonna be fine. It'll be it's just so sad to me. I'm just like,
And I was going to say, and what's the saddest about that is that there have been a lot of studies that have been done that show a direct correlation between mental health and physical health. And
absolutely.
it's that if you're constantly telling yourself, constantly feeding your mind with that pain isn't real or this isn't,
Yeah.
what I think it is, it's something else, you can actually manifest physical
Mhm.
things and make
Yeah.
those things. So, like you're saying, if women blame everything on their ovaries and then
Yeah.
10 years later they end up with ovarian cancer,
Mhm.
do you think there's not some correlation there between the
Mhm.
two things? There is. There is.
Yeah.
And psychiatrists will tell you that in a lot of cases your mind is actually what's making you sick because
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And just like we were doing shows about self-care.
Yeah.
And, the whole deal was that you have to take care of yourself, and so much of it was
Mhm.
more the mind than the body, because a lot of it was like, if you wanna go, climb rocks, you climb mountains or whatever, if that clears your mind and,
Mhm.
resets your system, then do that. So that's not resting physically, that's
Right.
resting here.
Yeah.
And so, that's the importance of all that because if you don't, men especially die of heart attacks and stuff like
Mhm.
that just because of
That's from bottling all that
not
stuff
having,
inside.
yeah, bottling it
Yep.
all up.
Mhm.
So I want to look at a couple things that I brought here because it just speaking of bottling things up, I
Mhm.
titled this one pressure cooker. So that was kind of an interesting deal, but anyway, yeah, it's kinda small, some of it too. I'm gonna lean forward, but it says,
Lean
"From the
into it,
time that
Susie.
boys" yeah, I'm gonna lean into it. "From the time boys can walk, they're told, 'Don't cry, don't ask for help, and for heaven's sake, don't be soft.' But here's the truth, emotions aren't weak, they're human." And I just think that that is just so important. Just that line in and of itself is important.
Yeah.
But in a stat check, it says men die by, I think we're far enough along now, suicide
Mhm.
at 3 to 4 times the rate of women in most Western countries. Only 1 in 3 men who struggle with mental health ever seeks professional help, which is just
That's 33%. That is
yeah,
sad. That is so sad.
I
We've
know.
gotta get that number up.
And it says you're taught to be a man before you're taught to be a person, and that's Dr. Wisdom Powell, a
Mhm.
psychologist and men's health expert. And then it says role reversals in modern families, which we're going to talk about a lot on tonight's show about, how these gender reversals or role reversals can kind of, take a toll and in some cases not. I mean, I like I was
Mhm.
saying to John earlier, nothing that we say is the absolute, for every
No.
man. So if it's like if you're hearing something and you're like, that's not how I am about this. Well, no, but the person next to you might be. So, you know,
Mhm.
we're just kind of talking about in general and what some of the statistics show. So anyway, it says let's talk about stay-at-home dads, house husbands, and breadwinner mamas. 50 years ago, that was scandalous. Today,
Mhm.
it is survival. Absolutely, absolutely. I know several people just right off the top of my head that the woman works, outside of
Mhm,
the home, I should put it that way. The woman works outside of the home, and the man is the one that takes care of the home. In
mhm,
fact, Mark's sister, she she's working now, and her husband has actually kind of retired, I guess. He owned his own business, and he sold it because it was, not it was not that it wasn't doing well, but it was just times are changing. Let's just put it
yeah,
that way. Times are changing, and sometimes you can kinda work yourself out of a job. But
mhm.
anyway, so now he's staying home, and she jokes and he laughs about it. They call him the pool boy and, the chef and the I don't know, the laundry. Yeah, they call him everything because he does everything. He cooks, he
The
cleans the pool,
gardener.
he mows the grass. Yeah, he's everything.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, I know you're sleeping with that pool boy. I know you are." He'll just grin. But I know several people that are, and it works for
Mhm.
them. And you
I
know
do
what?
too.
If it works for you, do it. If it
Exactly.
doesn't, then you might have to switch to something else. But if it works for you and your family, that's all that matters.
Right.
That's all that matters. And I love it that now it's becoming so much more normal and not that whole scandalous thing that it used to be.
Yeah.
It says in the US, the number of stay-at-home dads has more than doubled in the last 25 years. That's a lot to
That's
double.
staggering. That's a lot.
Yeah. In same-sex marriages, one dad often takes on the primary caregiver role, and yes, they face the same stigma straight dads do, sometimes more.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And then it says men in caregiving roles face judgment not only from outsiders, but sometimes from within. It's a directive clash with the identity they were raised with. And a lot of that from within is with themselves. Like even
Mhm.
their wife or husband, on a same-sex marriage, they may be okay with it, but from within can mean within yourself,
Yeah.
where you're
'Cause if you're
beating
not
yourself
built
up
for
over
it,
it.
yeah, if you're not built for it, you can very easily emasculate yourself
Yeah.
just by your
Yeah, it doesn't
thoughts.
have to be that the wife is like, you know,
Yeah.
jabbing at him and being like, "I'm, making the money." I just cannot even imagine. I've
Mhm.
been the breadwinner before and and the one that stayed at home. I've done both. I've
Mhm.
also been the one that was just not quite an equal, but real close.
Mhm.
Mark's always made more money than me, but I have
Mhm.
always, always made money. And so I've had it kind of all three ways. I've stayed home. He's stayed home and not Mark, but my first husband, and I've worked. We had it both ways. And then
Mhm.
Mark and I have had it where we just have both worked. Or even if I wasn't making a lot, I was making something. And so it
Mhm.
always just felt like I was contributing. But if he needed to stay home, I would be like fine with it. I mean,
Mhm.
it would not bother me at all. So, and I think
I
he would be okay with it. I really
yeah,
do. I think he would be okay with it.
I think I would have been okay with it. My wife and I never
Yeah.
did that, but when we met, we were both working midnights,
Oh, yeah.
and we realized early on because she had 3 kids of her own, and I
Mhm.
had 1 of my own, so we came in to the relationship with 4 children. So it was
Yeah,
like
just about the
instant
Brady
family.
Bunch.
Yeah, it was like instant family. So
Yeah.
we quickly realized that it would be best if one of us worked days and one of us worked midnights. And
Mhm.
so that way we didn't have to pay for childcare. We didn't have to worry about our kids being with somebody else. They were always with
Yeah.
one of us.
Mhm.
And so I got a little taste of that. And
Yeah.
I actually took to it pretty well. I mean, it wasn't the same situation where she was the only one making money, but
Mhm.
I did get a little taste of what it felt like to be a Mr. Mom,
Yeah.
and I kinda
Yeah.
liked it. I really did because I got to spend more time with my stepkids than most dads get to spend with their kids who
Yeah.
work,
I can
full
see
time.
that.
Yeah.
That would be something.
So it was actually a win-win all the way around. It worked pretty
Mhm.
well.
That's awesome. That
Yeah.
really is awesome.
But I could
Because
see if a guy wasn't wired that way
yeah,
and,
absolutely.
it was beat into him from a young age and then he was kinda thrust into that situation.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could see where you could very quickly fall into depression.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it says part 3 is work identity and self-worth. It says, "For generations, men worth has been tied to what they do, not who they were.
Mm,
Lose a job, you don't you don't just lose income, you lose your identity." And that is that's so true for so
very
many
true.
men.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unemployed men are twice as likely to experience depression than employed ones. Wow.
Mm,
Twice. I mean,
twice as likely.
yeah. Men in lower income brackets or rural areas face higher rates of suicide and substance abuse. I've wondered about that. I saw this when I was doing the research and I thought, I hear about that a lot. Like I live rurally, you know,
Mhm.
and I know of several people, several men who have killed themselves and substance abuse. I don't know if that is, if it has to do with, I mean, obviously with mental health, but I don't know if it has to do with any kind of, the whole being a man thing, but I do
Prob
see that it's very prominent out here,
Yeah.
very,
Probably not so much it
very.
being a man thing as much as it
Yeah.
is a boredom thing.
Yeah.
Because I've lived in the country a good portion of my life as well, and
Mhm.
it seems like a lot of the things, especially as kids, high school age,
Mhm.
kids are doing crazy stuff. They're trying drugs, they're doing this, they're
Mhm.
doing that, because there's literally nothing else to do.
I know.
Some of those rural places are so boring, and everything
Yeah.
closes up at 8 o'clock at night, and it's like, there's nothing for
Yeah.
kids to do
What do you
but get
do?
in trouble, you know?
And I mean, in the
So
closest town, I mean, like, whenever the kids nowadays, like here, I mean, I've got a 16-year-old grandson and a 17-year-old grandson.
okay.
And if they wanted to actually, do something,
Mhm.
besides just like go to Sonic and get a soda or something, but actually do something, they're going to have to drive to Tulsa, which is an hour away.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, think about when you're 16, 17, an hour away requires gas.
Right. All
If
the
you've got
things you
a
don't have.
curfew, yeah, all the things you don't have.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And by the time you get there, do you have time to actually watch a movie or whatever they
Right.
wanna do these days,
Yeah,
Um, and
exactly.
then get back, and if you've got a girlfriend, she's gotta get home, and then you've gotta get home by it's just it's hard. And
Mhm.
so we've always encouraged these small towns, you've got to do stuff for these kids to do.
Yeah, you
And
gotta have
and
some
the
kind of
thing is
program.
that a lot of the things that the kids like, so do adults.
Mhm.
They like to go to the movie, they like to go to, like, a skate park. I mean, there's a lot of adult people that skateboard and all that kind of stuff, or some kind of a, like a the name of it just went out of my head, but, like, with all the video games and everything, all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. I mean, honestly, is it any wonder, though, really, that so many rural kids are just so addicted to their video games that they just hide out in their room all the time? It's like, what else are
Mhm.
they gonna do? You know?
Yeah, that's
So,
very, very true.
yeah. So
And you
I
know what?
agree.
I'm probably dating myself here, but, like, so I grew up mostly in the city. I'm a city kid.
Yeah.
And, for us, we always had things like the YMCA. The
Oh,
YMCA
yeah.
always had really good teen programs, after school
Mhm.
programs, and I mean, we would go and we would play basketball with our friends or, lift weights or whatever, but it
Mhm.
was a way to get us off the street, give us something to do, and stay out of trouble. And,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know how prevalent the Ys are nowadays, but back when I was a kid, they were everywhere.
I think that
And
they are so, like, I don't mean this bad, I really don't, but I don't know how else to say it, but they are so fixated and taken over with, like, the homeless. They're really trying to help a lot of in that kind of a situation, and
mhm,
so they're not doing as much for the kids anymore. I used to know some people that were big in the whole YMCA thing, and it was
mhm.
just getting more and more and more to where they were, almost like what's the other one that they go to that the homeless go to? Man, my brain's not working tonight. But anyway, it
It's
is all just, you know and that's horrible because the homeless numbers are incredible anymore,
oh,
and
yeah.
which is men and women both, but strongly men, strongly
Mhm.
men. And the little town that I actually live just a few miles from has actual I mean, we're a tiny little town. I mean, we have
Mhm.
actually no stoplight. We used to have a stoplight and they took it out. I said, "Who takes out the stoplight?" That was our claim to fame,
It
was that we
can't be
had
a
a stoplight.
one-stoplight town with no
We
stoplights.
don't even have one. It has a stop sign, 2
Well, you
of
know
them,
what,
no
Susie?
stoplights.
I lived in Tulsa for 2 years when I was in my
Mhm.
20s. Now that was, 40 some odd years ago, and I remember the homeless situation wasn't great there then. I can imagine what it's like now, 40 years
Well,
later.
our little town here, I go through town and there
Mhm.
are homeless people, not 1 or 2. There are multiple homeless people walking around the streets in that town.
Mm.
I mean, it is
And in small town
unreal, and
America,
we
that
are a
just should not be
tiny
a
little town.
thing. It
I know,
should not be
and
a
it has a
thing.
lot to do with drugs, and so we're circling back to mental health, and a lot of it, they lose their jobs because they're on drugs. So
Mm,
they've lost their jobs, they've lost their families because of it.
right.
They go to jail and then they
Mhm.
come out. I know of one situation where he was not typically a drug user, but he got in with a crowd and he started using drugs.
Mhm.
And it started small and it got big. But anyway, he's a good guy. I mean, he
Mhm.
truly is. He's a good guy. We always tease him though and call him the cellar dweller because for a while he was sneaking and living in his son's cellar and his son didn't even know it.
Oh, no.
So we call him the cellar dweller. And he laughs about it. I mean, I'm not being
Yeah,
hateful, you know.
sure.
So anyway, he went to jail.
Mhm.
But when he got out, he didn't have anywhere to go.
It starts a cycle,
He
yeah.
didn't have anywhere to go. And what did he do? He got back in with those same people and now he's back on drugs and homeless.
Yeah.
So
Yep,
and I
it's a
mean,
cycle.
his son and daughter-in-law wanna help him, but there's only so much that they can do. They're trying to raise their family, and they don't
Sure.
want the drugs and stuff around their
Right.
child, and, it's just a mess. But
Yeah.
anyway, that got off on a big old tangent, but it
No, but
says
it's very
but it
a
is
good
all the
point.
same thing, yeah.
Mhm.
It says, "What's changing and what needs to change? Not all the news is bad, y'all. 2 men
Gen Z,
or
man.
Gen Z men, they're opening up, talking, crying, going to therapy, wearing pink, and we love to see it. Absolutely. See, I typed stuff, but then I forget what I
Mhm.
typed 'cause it's been a few days ago. But the stigma is still strong in rural areas, conservative cultures, military and law enforcement communities, and some religious environments. And see, I am rural and very conservative,
Mhm.
very religious. This whole area out here is all that.
Mhm.
Very conservative, very
Wow.
rural.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So, it says we've got to stop telling men that their value is in their silence. Amen.
Mhm.
Oh, goodness. And then I do have another one that's about stay-at-home dads. So I'm trying to kinda get the ones that cover what we've talked about so far
Mhm.
and, kind of, you know, lump that together.
Yeah.
So, it says stay-at-home dads then versus now. So, I have to get my little
I was gonna
magnifying
say, I can take over
glass.
for you at some point
Yeah, if
if you
you
want
can
me
see
to.
it better, then you go ahead and
Yeah.
read it. I like your
Okay.
voice better.
So, we're looking at stay-at-home dads then versus now. So, in 1989, the share of stay-at-home parents who were dads was 10%.
Wow.
The primary reason for them staying home was only 4% of stay-at-home dads cited caring for home or family as their main reason. Other
Mhm,
reasons, a significant portion were at home due to illness, disability, or inability to find work. So,
mhm.
basically, through no fault of their own.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2012, the share of stay at home parents who were dads went up to 16%. The primary reason for staying home, 21% cited caring for home or family, a five-fold increase from 1989. So we were already on the rise here. The other
Mhm.
reasons went from, it just said a significant portion. So now it's 35% were at home due to
Wow.
illness or disability, and 23% couldn't find work.
Mm.
Now we fast forward to 2021. Share of stay-at-home parents who were dads goes up to 18%.
Wow.
23% cited caring for home or family as their reasons for staying home, and 34%. So actually, the others went down 1% from 2012 to 2021.
Yeah.
Still a high number, though. 34% were at
Yeah.
home due to illness or disability. 13% were retired.
Mhm.
13% couldn't find work. And 8 and 3/8, I think it says, were in school.
Yeah.
So those are 2 categories that didn't exist in the previous years, which were,
Yeah. But
retirement
those are only going to increase as the time goes
and
by.
school.
I couldn't
Yeah.
find stats for now. I mean, 21 was the closest that I could get.
That
It
worries
always
me,
takes them a
though.
while.
That worries me, though. 13% of stay-at-home dads were retired? So
Yeah.
what does that tell you? People are having
Mhm.
children later and later in
Yeah.
life, so now
Yeah.
you got kids that are
Especially
not even of
men.
age. Mhm.
These men are waiting until later to get married and have children because they are
Yeah,
trying to work,
yeah.
and get that home and get that nest egg and get all this stuff. And
Mhm.
then by the time they have kids, they're retirement age. And
Right,
which is
so
just gonna
instead of
leave
enjoying your retirement,
potentially
now you're still raising
yeah,
kids.
and
That's
potentially leaving kids
crazy.
without a dad because how
Mhm,
far and when did they retire? Mark's 68 years old, and I'm trying to get him to retire.
mhm,
So, if he started raising children now, if he retired right now and started raising if we start having kids, he married a young girl, let's say, or not.
mhm. Well, he
We have
could
a
marry a
thing that
young
says if
girl.
I die first and he gets remarried, then
Mhm.
my granddaughter is going to stalk him and make her miserable. I said, "Well, at least
That's
if he does, she has
horrible.
to be, like, old and ugly," you know? Trollish.
As long as
I'm just
she's
kidding,
not prettier than
probably.
me,
As
we're
long
better
as
than
she's
that
not prettier
before.
than me. Yeah, I know. But
Alright, and
anyway.
then okay, so trends and observations. Increasing participation. The proportion of stay-at-home dads has steadily risen from 10% in 1989 to 18 and 3 quarters in 2021.
Mhm,
There's shifting reasons for that. There's been a notable increase in dads choosing to stay home primarily to care for their families, indicating a shift in societal norms and personal choices.
mhm.
And that was I was gonna say that earlier. I'm glad they mentioned that down here
Yeah.
because, yes, times have changed, and
Yeah.
more people are understanding that traditional roles, don't have to be set in stone,
No,
in order
absolutely.
to have a successful family life, both people should be flexible. If
Mhm,
one has the ability to make more money than the other, I know we're going to talk about that next. If one has the ability to make more money than others, we have to be able to put that aside, because that's a pride thing. Men are very prideful,
mhm.
and
Yeah,
our ability to provide for our families is like the number one thing that is drilled into our
absolutely.
heads. And now along comes this woman who makes more money than you do. How's that gonna make
Yeah.
you feel?
That's
But
our next slide, actually.
yeah, but because the times are changing, we have to change with them. We have to be flexible
Absolutely.
and realize that
Absolutely.
our worth is not tied to any one thing. Being a
Yeah.
father is just as important as being a provider.
And it's just as
And
important as being a mother.
yeah,
Like, I
absolutely.
am so proud of my youngest daughter and her husband or ex-husband. They got
Mhm,
a divorce, and luckily they live close to each other. I mean, literally like 2 minutes apart.
mhm.
And I mean, and that may not always be the case. But right now, the girls are young. I mean, they're in school, but they're young.
Yeah.
And they split it up absolutely 50-50. Those girls have all of their bedroom stuff at daddy's house, all of their
Mhm.
bedroom stuff at mommy's house, all they have clothes. There's none of that packing and taking things back and forth. They are doing it so much better now that they're divorced than they did when they were married because there's no fighting.
That's
And
wonderful.
so I know that that's not the same as like, being married and having all this, but what my point is that 3 and a half days of the week, he's mom and dad, and 3 and
Mhm.
a half days of the week, she's mom and dad. They're equal. They're absolutely equal in it, and they're
And
just doing an absolutely wonderful job, and that would have not been something that was the norm before.
no, and you know what's wonderful about that is they're probably both getting more out of being a parent that way
Mhm.
than they were when they were married.
Well, because there's not one parent that gets to be the good guy and one parent that
Right,
has to be the bad guy. They
right.
both get to be the good guy and they
Not
both
only
get to be
that,
the
but the
bad guy.
kids, it's a win-win for the kids because they get
Uh-huh.
both their parents and they don't, no fighting or
Mhm.
arguing and everything's
Yeah.
great and you get the best of both worlds.
Well, the other night it was storming and there was a tornado warning and she went over to his house because he's got a safe room in his house and
Mhm.
she doesn't. And they were at the youngest one's little graduation from preschool and they took a picture as a family. I mean,
Oh,
everything just these men and women these days and it's these younger generations that are figuring
mhm.
it out.
Yeah,
You know,
they
it's the
absolutely
ones
are.
younger than us, it's the ones below, us, our
Yeah,
children and their children, the ones that are figuring it out, and I'm so proud of them. 'Em. We're
I
kinda all late to
agree.
the party, but
We're
I'm
all
trying.
late to the party. Gen Z is teaching us how it's done. That's
I
absolutely
know
true.
it, I know it.
Absolutely.
So, here's this other one, which I thought was a good segue a while ago. It talks about the income dynamic, if you wanna read that one. If you get tired, I'll take back over, but if
No,
not,
that's
I'll
okay.
let you do it.
No, okay, I'm very involved in this part of it.
Yes.
So the income dynamics in modern marriages. So first we talk about wives as the primary earners. In 2022, 16% of opposite sex marriages in the US had wives as the sole or primary breadwinners, up from
Mhm.
5% in
Wow.
1972. Specifically, 10% of marriages had wives earning more than 60% of the household income, and
Mhm.
I can't read those fractions. I think it says 6 and 3
Yeah,
quarters had wives as the
yeah,
sole earners, so we'll just say
yeah,
7.
yeah.
So 7% had wives as the sole
Wow.
earner. So that's still pretty low, but 60% of the majority of the household income, 10% of marriages. That's not great, but I
It's
mean,
not great, but it's getting better, and I bet
it's
it's higher
getting
now.
better. Yeah, I would imagine it is because that was, what, 3 years ago?
Yeah,
And
and it
then we
it
talk
has
about
really moved fast lately.
yeah. So we talk about egalitarian earnings. So approximately 29% of marriages featured both spouses earning between 40%
Mhm,
and 60% of the combined income, reflecting a
mhm,
move toward more balanced financial contributions.
mhm.
Okay,
Which is
that's
great, I think
that
is
is
great.
great.
If
Yeah,
if that can happen, that's absolutely great. It's
right.
harder with children,
Yeah,
but
it
if you
is.
take into effect what you're saving in childcare,
Mhm.
because childcare is outrageous,
Well, like I said,
and so that can make a big difference.
when we were working 2 different shifts and we were both able to be with the kids all the time, it saved us so much
Mhm.
money on
Oh,
childcare.
yeah.
Plus, it also benefited them
Oh, yeah.
because they had both their parents all the time, and it
Mhm,
benefited us because both felt like we got to be parents
mhm,
instead of one of us working all the time and never seeing the kids and missing out on their
mhm,
games, and so it actually works out a little better for everyone involved to do it
mhm.
that way.
Yeah,
And then here's the
absolutely.
big one. So there's been a decline in sole male breadwinners. The
Mhm,
proportion of marriages where the husband is the sole provider decreased. Now brace yourself for this. Decreased from 49% in 1972. So that's almost half of all marriages
mhm.
to
No.
23% in 2022. So barely a
Yeah,
fourth, not even a fourth.
that's
And
something.
so and so if you can't change with the times are gonna change without you,
Mhm,
and thus the impact on men's mental health.
mhm,
So they said a study by the University of Durham examined over 20,000 Swedish couples and found that when wives began earning more than their husbands, there was an 11% increase in the likelihood of the husbands receiving a mental health diagnosis.
hmm,
The study suggests that traditional gender roles and societal expectations may contribute to this phenomenon, even in egalitarian societies.
mhm.
So, that plays a major role too, because especially societal expectations. I think, again, we say this a lot, it is getting better, but we still
Yeah,
have a really long way to go. I
yeah, we
mean, I
do.
can't tell you how many times when my wife and I were doing the co-parenting thing that I would go to the grocery store and have the kids in tow. And the looks of
Mhm,
disapproval that I would get from people,
Mhm.
And I know what they were looking at first, I didn't understand why they were looking at me that way. I thought, "Is it weird to see a man grocery shopping with his kids? Is that what they're
Yeah.
looking at me weird for? Or are they looking at me like I'm a loser because
Mhm.
I must not have a job because I'm at the
Yeah.
grocery store with my kids instead of being at work?"
You wanna wear a
And I
shirt that says, "I
realized
just got off work, dude."
yeah, and I realized as time went by that it was the latter and not the former that
Yeah.
they were giving me the disapproving looks for. And yeah, at one point, I did make a joke that I should wear a sign that says,
Yeah.
I work midnights," you know,
Yeah.
or "This is my other job,"
You
something
know,
like that. But yeah,
when
society
I
looks
was reading
down on
some of
men.
this, I realized that even myself, and I hate admitting whenever I have, like, something that's wrong, but I when I was looking into all this, I realized how many times that I have seen, like, a man with his children or with just one child, it doesn't matter, with children,
Mhm. Right.
and I'll think, "Well, he must be divorced. He's a weekend dad." And and then now I'm just like, "Oh my god, you're part of the problem." I was sitting here
Because
thinking the
yeah,
same kinda thing, that
see? We're all
yeah,
programmed though, Susie, even
yeah,
women are programmed to think that
yeah,
way.
mhm,
And it's yeah, it's terrible, but
it
if we
is,
that's why it's so important for us to talk about it because if we
and
all
and another
understand that we have the same frailties and we have the same, misinterpretations of
biases and
things,
everything.
biases that we didn't even know we had, if we talk about it, that's how we learn and we get beyond it. And
I was
that's
thinking about it too, that and kinda scolding myself a little bit, I mean, I really was,
Mhm.
that shame on me because even if he's a weekend dad, he's being a dad.
He's being a dad, right, exactly, and what
He's
could be
he's
wrong with that?
he's being a dad.
Mhm.
So,
I'll tell
you
you a
know.
little secret, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but I'm gonna say it because I if I'm gonna tell other people they have to grow, I'm gonna grow too. I'm gonna show you how it's done. So, I have 2 degrees. I decided to go back
Mhm,
to school when I was 50, and because I had worked now I've been a supervisor or a manager of some form for most of my
mhm,
career. Most of that has been I live in Michigan. We're all about cars here. Everything's about the auto industry. So I've worked in one factory after another most of my life. Even though
mhm.
I've been a supervisor, I haven't made, like fantastic money or anything like that, but I've done it all. Well, when I hit 50, I said to myself, I've been working my ass off my entire life. I think
Yeah,
it's time that I go back to school, get a degree, and do what I want to do from now until, 15 or 20 years until I'm old enough to retire. Shouldn't I
mhm,
be able to, at least at one point in my life, do what I want to do? And so
absolutely.
I had a conversation with my wife. I said, I want to go back to school. She supported me. She said, by all means, go back to school. So I
Mhm,
went, I got my bachelor's degree. I was happy with the accomplishment. I decided to go back and get my master's degree. I got 2 degrees. My wife, who barely graduated from high school, she grew up in
yeah,
a very small town, very rural area, went to cosmetology school when she was in high school because she didn't know what she wanted to do or what she wanted to be with herself.
yeah.
And that's not to put her down, I'm just saying
No,
I'm
no, no.
comparing and contrasting. But I can tell you that now she's a supervisor in a factory, so she basically that's how we met. We met in that
Mhm,
factory. And, so she worked her way up from a machine operator. She just celebrated 30 years at her job. So she started out as a machine operator, worked herself up to supervisor. So now
mm,
she deals with all the problems that I dealt with my entire life. And she comes home and complains to me about those things. And I'm like,
yeah.
have I told you lately how much I don't miss it? And she gets mad.
Yeah.
But my point here is that she worked her way up from the ground floor up to supervision.
Yeah.
I basically kind of came out like that and worked myself level all those
Mhm,
years. Well, I graduated from college with my second degree. I found a corporate job, and it is, Susie, I can't even describe to you how heaven it is coming from where I came from
Wow.
and busting my ass and coming home covered in grease and just smelling like, machines
Yeah.
and oil and all that stuff, to working in an office environment with people
Mhm.
where there's no drama, there's no
Oh,
politics,
wow.
there's no nothing. I actually look forward to going to work every day.
Wow.
She makes more money
Well,
than I do.
she makes more money.
Yeah. And the reason why she makes more money is because she is, even though she's a supervisor, she's still an hourly employee.
Mhm.
And they work, 12-hour shifts sometimes when they're busy. They
Yeah.
work Saturdays and Sundays. So most of the money that she gets is from overtime.
Yeah.
Whereas I had to give that up going into a corporate environment because now I have a 9 to 5 job and we don't work overtime and we don't do
Yeah.
Saturdays and
But
Sundays.
you know what? It's
And
worth it.
so, yeah. But for a long time there, I'm going to admit to you guys, it bothered me
Mhm.
because, and it didn't help that she would rub my nose in it. She'd be like, "I got a raise. Look how much I'm making now." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I was almost caught up to you. And now you're passing me again."
Yeah.
It
That's
wasn't to the point
funny.
where it caused me to have depression or anything like that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
my point is that it can affect any of us at any time.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
after a while, I just realized, you know what? It doesn't matter. It's just all that much more money that we have to spend on our
Absolutely.
family. And once I
Mhm.
started looking at it as a whole instead of a
Mhm.
her and me, it became easier to
Yeah.
deal with.
See, I
I
always
still
looked
like
at it like
delivering
that
with it.
whenever I was working, whether I was making a little bit of money or a
Mhm.
lot. I always just looked like, I just looked at it like this is just more money for our family. It's just because
Right.
I thought of his money as my money and my money is his money. It's our money. This is
Right.
this is how we're living.
Yep.
But boy, my first husband was not good with it. There was a
Mm.
time and I was literally waiting tables because I
Mhm.
had to work around the girls' schedule, and we were doing the whole thing where I would be at home with the kids while he was at work, and then he would be home with the kids while I was at work, so we didn't have childcare, and so the kids were with us.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was a fitter welder with the union,
Mm.
doing great,
Big bucks. Yeah.
and yeah, and I was making more money than him as a waitress.
Yeah.
Considerably more money than him as a waitress, and
Right.
he could not handle it. I mean, I felt bad for him. I ended up quitting. I thought it is not worth it. He's gonna, have a heart attack because
Mhm.
he's one of those men that now his wife that he's married to now
Mhm.
makes more money than him, but he retired from that and he works like part-time.
Oh, okay.
He just has a job he loves that he just
Yeah.
does it because he loves it.
Right.
And, he works in construct he builds ponds and all that kind of stuff,
Oh,
he does it
well,
yeah,
there's good money
and
in
so
that
he
too.
oh, yeah, but he doesn't work
Mhm.
like a steady, constant
Yeah.
60 hours a week or whatever.
Right.
But now he's fine with it, he's fine with so much more since he got with her than he was when he was with me, and I'm like, "Nothing's changed." I mean, and her and I are so much alike that neither one of us thought bad about him making especially when he was a fitter welder with the union. He was
Mhm.
already making money, and then I started rolling in the dough. That's what
Yeah.
it felt like to me.
Right.
But I
Between the
was
2
working
of
in a
you, you must have been doing
steakhouse.
pretty good.
I was working in a steakhouse in a little oil town, you know?
Mhm. Right.
And yeah,
Well, I tell this
all
story
these
sometimes.
people.
My mom was an English teacher,
Mhm.
and the sad realization, and I would love to say that things have changed, but they really haven't.
Mm-mm.
Teachers are grossly
Mhm.
underpaid. And the reality
Yeah.
of the situation was that my mom did not make enough as a teacher to take care of us.
Mhm.
And she had to start waitressing on the weekends. And
Mhm.
at one point, she told me, because she would only waitress on Friday nights and Saturday nights, and sometimes lunch on Sundays. She
Mhm.
got to a point where she was making more waitressing on the weekends than she was at her full time job teaching,
Yeah,
and
with a
that's so
degree.
sad. Yeah, with a
Mhm.
degree. So sad.
Well, my daughter, the oldest one, um, she's got her teaching thing, she's got her master's, the whole bit, and they
Mhm.
decided for her to stay home because even I mean, they had a child that was too young for school at the time when they first decided that,
Mhm.
but with childcare and everything, it was gonna take so much of what she made that it was not worth it. They just were like,
Yeah,
"It's
you're
not
almost
worth
better
it for
off
you
not
to
working,
be."
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, she would have still made money,
Mhm.
but was
Yeah,
it
but it
worth
would've
it for her
mostly
to
been
be
gone, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it
She
is
would
just
have barely
incredible
made
what it
any
costs.
she would have barely
Yeah.
made anything plus all that time that she wasn't able to spend with her kids, so, yeah, you gotta weigh that.
Mhm. Now the youngest one, she's a teacher too. We seem to breed these teachers. I was not a teacher, but
Well,
we seem
God
to have a
bless
lot
them
of them in
all.
my family. I know it.
God bless them
But
all
she's
because
a
we need
teacher
more.
too, but she stayed home and got her degrees and everything until her, youngest one got into preschool, and now she
Mhm.
works, and so her youngest daughter, because she works in the it's Sand Springs, it's a town outside of Tulsa,
Mhm.
but you can't tell when it starts and when it ends anymore, they're like the same thing. But anyway, so she works for the Sand Springs School District, and so the
Mhm.
youngest daughter just graduated from the preschool thing, but anyway, in the
Mhm.
Sand Springs department, so she didn't have to pay for her daughter to go to this, and she doesn't have to pay for any kinda daycare, so she waited until the
Hmm.
youngest one got into that, and now she works and she's off if they're off, and her ex-husband is a mailman.
Oh,
So
shit.
he was in the military and he was
Mhm.
deployed like 4 times and
Oh,
everything,
wow.
but yeah, we
Well,
still
that's
love him. They
awesome.
might be divorced, but he's still ours.
Ah, that's good. And
But
so I think we left off at societal perceptions and
oh, yeah.
challenges.
Mhm.
So societal norms continue to influence perceptions of gender roles within marriages, which is what we were just talking about. A
Mhm.
Pew Research Center survey found that nearly half of Americans believe most husbands prefer to earn more than their wives. These perceptions can create tension and impact the well being of both spouses when traditional roles are reversed. Not to
Mhm.
mention, they'll also impact the well being of the children who are
Yeah.
stuck in that. All right. So, did you want me to talk about the key takeaways?
Sure.
Okay. So the key takeaways are evolving roles. The increase in wives as primary earners reflects changing societal norms and economic realities. Mental health considerations. Shifts in traditional income roles can impact men's mental health, highlighting the need for supportive measures. Shared responsibilities. Equitable distribution of household tasks remains a challenge, even as financial contributions become more balanced.
Mm.
And addressing perceptions. Challenging traditional gender norms and fostering open communication can help couples navigate changes in income. I think does it cut off there or is there more? Can you scroll it
No, I
up?
think that's it. Yeah, that's
That's
it.
it. Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we
And
also
obviously, guys, I know that we're only scratching the surface of this,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Susie and I have talked about, because the whole month of June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month.
Mhm.
Um, this is probably not going to be our last show on this.
No, uh-uh.
And, Keela and I will be talking about it. Susie and I will be talking about it. And I'm very passionate about it. I will keep banging the drum. So,
That's not the one I wanted. Hold on, I'm sorry.
no, that's fine.
Uh, that one, I'm ahead of myself. I don't know how I got out of whoops.
Oh,
Oh, me and my fingers are not well, I'm trying to take
that's
the
all
okay, it
right.
went off the stage. Okay. Uh, okay, let me go ahead and talk if you want. But
I
yeah,
think
we're
that
gonna
was,
do more.
yeah, we're definitely
We
going
are
to do more. Because, I mean,
definitely gonna do more.
I would really like to hear, and if all you guys that are in the chat, and even some of the women, if you have any experience with any of the things that we've been talking about, leave a comment down below in the video. And of course, it helps the
Yeah.
algorithm and all that good stuff. But
Yeah, but still, it
it
just is
we would
good.
also like to start a dialogue with you guys, and just get an idea for what kind of things you've experienced in regards to this, and give us some direction on things you'd like us to talk about as the month progresses.
Now this has to do the one that I popped up here, and I have there's 2 different pages on this because this one it lists the Black men and Latino men, and then the
Oh,
other
I
one
like
has
this.
the Asian men and the, Native American men and women, and I thought you might wanna read that too,
I really
and,
like this a lot, Susie, and I hadn't really thought of it from this angle, but
Uh-huh.
there are a lot of differences culturally that can also affect
Absolutely.
men's mental health, and this is important to talk about as well.
Absolutely.
So, this says Black men navigating provider expectations amid systemic barriers. So, traditional expectations often position Black men as primary providers, which is
Mhm.
very similar to white men.
Yeah.
However, systemic challenges such as wage disparities and limited wealth accumulation can hinder this role, leading to
Mm.
increased stress and mental health concerns. Notably, Black men earn less than their white counterparts at every education level, and middle
No.
class Black men have significantly lower wealth than white men. And that's a whole nother topic there, guys. But yeah, I agree with that.
Mhm.
This economic strain can exacerbate feelings of inadequacy and stress,
Absolutely.
impacting mental well being. Absolutely. I mean, that's it,
And I
it goes back to the same thing we're talking about with women earning more than men. I mean,
Mhm.
it's emasculating no matter what culture you come from, and it can be, and especially in a situation like that where you're not only going up against women, but
Mhm.
you're also 2 steps back before you even get started,
For
you know?
something that you have absolutely no control of, you
No
cannot
control over.
educate yourself enough, you cannot,
Yeah,
get more experience, you can't do anything to change the fact that your skin is black
right,
or
exactly.
brown, you know?
And,
I
this doesn't
just
even I mean, we're gonna talk about this, but this doesn't even scratch the surface. I mean,
mm-mm,
we can
mm-mm.
even start talking about, mixed culture marriages. Can you imagine how
Absolutely,
much more challenging those are? Because now you've got
absolutely.
2 different cultures battling each other, and that the societal
Exactly.
expectations of that, and
Mhm.
so,
Because,
I
like,
mean, this
if the man's if his everything that he's ever known and thought was this way, but maybe hers is like, "No, it's this way," and
right,
just
and
the
just those
uh,
clashes, yeah, exactly, not
yeah.
even to mention the mental health aspect of it. So,
Absolutely,
yeah,
which
it
can
can be a real
lead
mess.
the clashes can lead to the mental health issues, so
Oh,
it just
absolutely.
breaks my heart.
Yeah,
I
it's
think the
just
whole idea that you can have a highly educated black man and a
mhm,
highly educated white man, and the black man is gonna make substantially less every single time, and it just
every
makes me
time.
sick. It
Yeah,
just makes me sick. And what does that do to his mental health?
right.
Because that's something he can't change. That was my whole point on showing this stuff. This was my, deep dive last night.
Yeah, no, this is really good stuff. I'm glad you did this because I hadn't even thought of it from this angle.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we talk about Black women, the strong Black woman schema and its implications.
Mhm.
The cultural archetype of the strong Black woman emphasizes resilience and self reliance, often discouraging emotional vulnerability. While
Mhm.
this strength is commendable, it can lead to the suppression of emotional needs and reluctance to seek mental health support. So much like men,
Yeah.
it's the same kind of thing. Black women are raised almost the same way, that you have to be
They
stronger than everybody else,
Yeah,
and that can
absolutely.
cause, you know,
And I
even
noticed
further.
that more with the minority women than I did with white women, and that's why I added the women's
Mhm,
part in too, because I
mhm.
was just gonna put the men's, and I thought, "No, you know what? This is important because I think that
Yeah.
I think it plays into the man's mental health too."
Yep.
So I think that, because he's gonna try to fix her. He's gonna if
Right.
she's struggling, he's gonna try to fix her and he can't. And
Mhm.
so he's trying to deal with himself. It's just like a circle. I see it as a circle.
Yeah, it is,
And
it
and
really is.
yeah, and I did notice it more in the minorities than in,
Mhm.
Caucasians. So
Yep,
anyway, sorry.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so this internalization can result in heightened stress, anxiety, and depression, obviously.
Mhm.
Okay,
Absolutely.
and this is a conversation that I've had with our dear friend Jimena several times, is
Mhm.
about
Mhm.
Latino men, about
Absolutely.
machismo, which is a big
Yes.
thing, economic pressures, and mental
Absolutely.
health. And she has stressed this to me many times that in many Latino cultures, machismo underscores male dominance and emotional stoicism. This
Mhm.
cultural norm can deter Latino men from expressing vulnerability or
Mhm.
seeking mental health services. Coupled with economic challenges and potential immigration related stressors, these factors can contribute to untreated mental health issues within this community.
Mhm.
And she didn't give me exact numbers, but
Mhm.
Jimena did say that mental health issues, male mental health issues in the, especially in the Mexican community, are astronomically high. And she
Mhm.
said the majority of them go either undetected or underserviced because men simply refuse to seek help. They adamantly
Yeah.
refuse it.
Absolutely.
And then when we talk
Absolutely.
about Latino women, balancing cultural expectations and mental well being. And this is the conversation that she and I had, was
Mhm.
because she said, I understand that women in my culture are brought up a certain way, men are brought up a certain way, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating that when men become adults in our culture, that they still cling to that mindset. And she
Yeah.
said, many a marriage, many a relationship is absolutely destroyed in Latin America
Mm.
simply because of that fact, because men are so adamant
Absolutely.
that they don't ever need help.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
okay, so when we talk about Latina women, balancing cultural expectations and mental well being, Latina women often juggle traditional caregiving roles with modern economic responsibilities. And this
Mhm.
is the conversation she and I had. Cultural stigmas surrounding mental health can discourage open discussions about emotional struggles. Additionally, barriers such as language differences, immigration status, and limited access to culturally. Let me
I
look
don't
this up.
remember what that says, and I don't have
Oh,
my but it
well, language differences, immigration
yes.
status, and access
Yeah,
to
all of that.
culturally
I can't
appropriate
remember what that was.
care.
Yeah.
I'm sure it had
It's
something to do with services, with
yeah,
culturally
it was.
accessible services.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And,
so women have it even harder. So like Jimena, and I'm sorry I keep bringing her up, but
no, but absolutely.
she's my
She's
resident Latina
yeah. She's
who
you're
knows this stuff. And we talk
yeah,
about
you're
this
our
stuff, and
token
it's like,
man, she's our
y-
token Latina.
there you go. So so she talks a lot about, I was raised, old school Mexican, and I
Mhm.
was taught that, my traditional caregiving role, but then I became an adult and I had children of my own, and I realized that I needed to work and make my own money to provide for my kids.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, so all these modern economic responsibilities came creeping into her life, and a lot of times they clash with her traditional
Mhm.
teaching. And she said that was really hard for me trying to adjust to, I wanted to be a modern woman, but I still wanted to honor, the traditions of my
Mhm.
culture. And she said it's a constant battle between the two. And then when you throw the machismo into it,
Yeah.
and you have a man who obviously has problems and he needs to get some kind of help, but he refuses
He
to.
refuses.
Once you throw that into the mix, it's just like, throwing a lit match into a can full of dynamite. It's not going
Absolutely.
to end well.
Mm-mm.
But
So then we
yeah.
have this last one. There it went. And
Oh,
I think it
okay.
actually almost gets the whole bottom. I've
Okay.
got to remember to bring those up further.
Yeah.
So,
Well, me, even if maybe if you take the Chiron down, maybe, but let's see. Let's see.
yeah,
Um,
let's
so
see.
Asian American men, cultural stoicism and underreported mental health issues. So
Oh,
cultural
yeah, sure.
values There we go. Cultural values emphasizing emotional restraint and familial honor can lead Asian American men to suppress emotional distress. I
Mm.
remember in Asian culture, honor is a really big deal.
It's
And the
yeah,
slightest, you say the slightest thing wrong to an
yeah,
Asian person and you're insulting their honor. And that is a very,
and that
very
of their
big thing to them.
ancestors. I mean,
Yes, exactly.
it's not just
So
them.
that's you got to be very careful. And so even in relationships,
Mhm,
it says this stoicism combined with external pressures like discrimination can result in underreported mental health issues and reluctance to seek help. So again,
mm,
much like the Hispanic culture and even our white culture, men are
mhm,
taught that to suppress our emotional needs.
absolutely,
And so there's a pattern here for sure. And then,
absolutely.
okay, so Asian American women navigating cultural expectations and mental health. Asian American women may face the dual pressures of upholding cultural expectations and confronting societal stereotypes.
Mhm,
These challenges can lead to increased rates of depression and anxiety. However, cultural stigmas around mental health often result in underutilization of available services. So, in the
mhm,
Asian American community, it's a double-edged sword because they look at it, God, I hate to say this, but they look at it very similarly to how Scientologists
yeah,
look at psychology, that it's not bad for one, it's bad for all.
yeah,
So, and Asians do have this stigma around psychiatry and mental health issues that
yeah,
it's not just a male, I mean, it's not just a female thing, it's not just a male thing, it's a
yeah,
no.
it's
You're
yeah,
weak either way if you do that. And
yeah. I
so,
noticed that one so strongly with the Asians that
mhm,
that it is both. It's not just that it's
yeah.
okay for her to go get some help, but it's not okay for me to go get help, No,
And a lot of it, I
nobody is
think a
just
lot of
yeah,
it goes back to that it being an honor-based
I do
society.
too, I do
So
too.
you're
And you
not
can't help
only
that. This is generation after generation
sure,
after generation,
sure, and it's hard to unlearn that.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then when we talk about Native American men, historical trauma and
Mhm,
mental health challenges. Historical traumas, including displacement and cultural
mhm,
suppression, have had lasting impacts on Native American communities. For
mhm,
Native American men, these collective experiences can manifest in higher rates of depression, substance abuse, and suicide.
mhm.
Limited access to culturally sensitive mental health services further exacerbates these challenges. This is one. hmm,
It's
This is
tough.
one that's tough. This is tough because I know because you live in an area that's probably has quite a few Indian reservations. What
Absolutely.
what we did to those people, we should always hang our heads in shame about
Mm,
because not only did we displace them and
yeah,
take them to somewhere they did not want to be,
mhm,
we took their culture away from them. We took
absolutely.
we took their identities away from them in so many ways. And
Mhm,
it's heartbreaking, it really is. The level of I do have a little bit of experience in this because I have a
mhm,
couple of friends who belong to nations, and the stories that they tell about, um, just imagine growing up and not knowing who you are,
mhm,
you know? We I can say from my perspective, a big part of my family, of learning about my family, was so fascinating, and it starts from childhood, from,
mhm,
grandmothers pulling out the photo albums of grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. I knew so much about my family history by the time I was a teenager.
mhm.
Now imagine
Me too.
growing up and
No.
knowing nothing because all records of their existence has been wiped out,
Mhm,
basically.
mhm.
So, you're living somewhere that's not native to your culture. Um, Most of your culture has been stripped away over the decades, just lost
Yeah,
to time, if nothing else. You don't have that familial bond going back generations. I mean, you're already starting out in the
so
hole.
few.
You're
So
already
few of
start
them even still speak their languages,
Yeah.
it's so odd for any I mean, like, at least I mean, and I'm not belittling this at all, but, like, in your Asian communities or your Latino communities,
Mhm.
they generally know at least some of their language. Maybe they're not great at it
Oh,
because they use,
yeah.
English all the time, but they
And
at
they
least know some of it. But in the
and
Native American, it is rare to find somebody that knows the language.
yeah,
I
they
know
take
some
so
women,
much pride
some
in their
are the
heritage.
cutest little things. I mean, they're like in their 90s.
Mhm.
These little we call them Indians, that's what they call themselves. They don't the
Mhm.
little old ladies don't wanna be called Native Americans. They are
No.
Indians, and they will tell
They're
you they are Indians.
Yep.
But anyway, these little Indian women, and they don't even speak English. They only speak their native language, and I think it is
Mhm.
beautiful.
It is
And I'm like,
wonderful.
"You know what? It's fine." And so to communicate, their children and grandchildren are still able to use at least some of the languages. It's less and
That's
less as the
wonderful.
generations
Yeah,
come
it
down.
is.
But,
It
there
is
are some
nice.
that, they have to. But,
Mhm.
I live on land 160 acres that was got in the land run, and sometimes
Mm.
that eats me alive. I'm so
Mm.
proud of this land, but
Yeah,
I'm
but at the same
also
time
yeah, but
yeah.
at the same time, I'm also part Native American, so I think that that makes me feel a little bit better,
Yeah,
you
at
know
least, like, you belong there, kinda, yeah.
Yeah, but or,
Yeah.
on some level anyway. But,
Mhm.
I tell you what, it's rough, and it is a rough subject to bring up in this area, and so it was
Yeah,
hard for me to even add the Native American part on there. I was like, "Maybe I'll
yeah.
just delete this part," but I was like, "No, add it because it
Yeah,
is important."
it's very
And
important.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
when we talk about the Native American women, see, I don't know if you guys are noticing a pattern here, but among the women in a lot of these cultures, the women are brought up the way men are in our culture.
Mhm,
They're supposed to be the strong ones. They're supposed to be unbreakable. So a lot of these
mhm.
things that we're talking about with men, if you notice in some of these cultures, it's actually
Mhm.
the women who are um, having the higher incidences of these things. And it's because
Yeah,
of that, when we talk about gender roles aren't always accurately defined. Like,
yeah,
and that's what we're trying to show is that
absolutely.
culture by culture, it can be completely different.
Mhm.
So, and when you talk about Native American women, so Native American women often confront the compounded effects of gender based violence, economic disparities, and cultural disconnection. These
Mhm.
intersecting pressures contribute to elevated risks of mental health issues. Efforts to provide culturally grounded support are essential in addressing these concerns. And it's something that's, as we said, it's woefully lacking, especially in
Yeah,
those
absolutely.
communities.
Mhm.
So here we talk about the common threads across all communities. Cultural stigmas. Many communities harbor stigmas around mental health, discouraging
Mhm.
open dialogue and help seeking behaviors. Economic disparities. Systemic economic inequalities disproportionately affect minority communities, adding stressors that impact mental health.
Mm.
So in our
On top
society,
of
we just have the way we were raised, so
Mhm.
that's our stigma. But in these, you also have the cultural things too,
Mhm.
and that's not something that um, makes it easier. It just compounds
Mm-mm.
the problem because you're
And it's
adding
not
more
just these. I
stressors.
listed these because they're
Right.
the main, but think
Yeah.
about, like, the German community,
Mhm.
the Italian community,
Mhm.
there's a lot.
Yeah,
There's a
there
lot
is.
of different communities
And
that
everybody
are
was
very
brought up
much like this.
different. Yeah.
Mhm. But I noticed that a lot like, we are such a mix, just a melting pot in the
Mhm.
US, in the Caucasian US, I'm saying,
Mhm.
But whenever you look at the others, their cultures are so defined. Like ours, we're a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and,
Yeah, a little
they're
mismatch.
so defined
Mhm.
that I think that their cultural beliefs and, everything that has to do with I think it's stronger in them
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're not diluted down with others.
Absolutely,
And
and
so
they're
it's
defined by those cultures, they really are.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then lastly, we talk about access to care. So this goes back to
Mhm,
what we were saying. So barriers such as language differences,
Mhm.
lack of culturally competent providers, and geographic isolation hinder access to mental health services.
Mhm.
So, I mean, on top of everything else, on top of the, well, I don't
Yeah,
want to go. So you finally talk the person into going, and then you can't find anybody to help you.
yeah,
So,
and and in the Native American community, a lot of times the, money aspect of it, a lot of the Native Americans, now I can only speak to Oklahoma, and it's certainly, again, I'm not saying they're all like that, but a lot of the Native Americans here in Oklahoma
mhm,
do live close to or below poverty lines.
yeah,
And so it is just, and it's not that they're dumb, they're very smart, but
no,
I don't know. I think it's the same kind of deal where, like, the black man makes less than the white man just
mhm.
because,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
because. I think that it still has
The
something to do with
Indian
it.
man starts out with a built-in disadvantage, yeah. It's
Mhm.
very
I
true,
think so too. I
very
really do.
true.
I could not find, and I really wanted to find it with, like, the
Mhm.
Middle Eastern. I wanted to find
Oh, yeah, I
specifically
was gonna
Middle
say, like,
Eastern.
some of those and some of the African nations, and I mean,
They were
we
lumping it in with Asian.
and
So,
the Eastern European bloc,
mhm.
and yeah, I mean, we could do show
Oh,
after
we could do
show.
nothing but that. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. But we're basically just trying to let you all
Mhm.
know that there's no, I talk about this, Keela talks about this a lot too
Oops.
on mental health matters. There is
No,
no
they
one cookie cutter way that works for everyone. It just doesn't
sorry,
exist.
I am, like, hitting the
You
wrong
have to
buttons.
your care has to be tailored to the individual. But what we're doing is we're
Absolutely.
speaking in generalities about men versus women as far as gender roles in how we approach mental health.
And I
So
want people to
that's the
understand
important thing.
too that by hearing different ways that this can affect them, and
Mhm.
having to do with even their cultural differences and stuff, that they're not alone.
Right.
That
That's the important
there
thing.
are other people out there feeling the exact same way that you're feeling,
Yep.
and dealing with all the same, because I think that we can, I don't, there's still just such a stigma with mental health that we just internalize it and try to just, like, hide
Mhm.
it away, and even if we're taking care of it, it's just now with these younger generations that are actually saying about, "Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to therapy tonight," or, "I've got a therapist appointment this afternoon," or
Mhm.
whatever. Our generation's still not as open with it
No.
as so many of the others.
No, but Gen Z is dragging us kicking and screaming towards better health, and
Yeah,
that's a very
absolutely, whether
good
we want
thing.
to or not.
That's a very good thing, and I'm really happy with that.
So I'm gonna check in with some of these starred comments real quick because 'cause we've
Okay.
already been in an hour and a half. It doesn't seem like it.
I told you, you put 2
I
chatterboxes
know.
together, what are you gonna get?
Chatterbox. Can you
Especially when
imagine if
you're
we had a
passionate.
Zoom call?
Yeah. Oh, good lord. Especially when you're passionate about something, I mean,
Exactly. I am very
yeah.
passionate about this,
Mhm.
and I'm passionate about men taking care of themselves
Yeah.
because I just, like, I have said it twice, I think, on here. We don't
Mhm.
need you to be perfect. We don't need you to be strong. We need you to be okay,
Yes.
because then you're going to be strong
Real
if
quick
you're
before you
okay.
go to the starred comments, I had
Uh-huh.
one thing I wanted to
Yeah,
mention
yeah,
real
yeah,
quick.
yeah, yeah.
One of the most important things to me as far as men's mental health, and I think if we're
Mhm.
ever gonna make real progress on the suicide rates of men, the
Mm.
depression rates of men, and really truly getting men back to where they should be, we as men, and all the guys in the chat chime in here if you agree with what I'm saying. We as men need to be able to say it to our friends. I have a best friend who's been my best friend since we were 16 years old, Susie. We have
Mhm.
never, and I mean never, talked about our feelings ever.
Wow.
He has cried in front of me over a girl before, bawled his eyes out, but would not speak a word about his feelings.
Mhm.
Just expressed the sadness in tears. That's the only thing
Yeah.
he could do. And it's absolutely critical, men, that we sit down with our friends and we say this one simple thing to them. I'm going through a really tough time right now emotionally, and I want you to know that it's
Mhm.
okay if you ever have a situation like this and you need to talk to me, it's
Absolutely.
okay. I'm not going to look at you differently. I'm not going to look down on you. I'm not going to call you names. I'm going to sit here and be your friend and listen to you. And that, I'm telling you guys,
Mm.
some of your friends are going to laugh at you. Some of them are going to think that you've gone round the bend. But if you stick to your guns
Yeah,
and you really mean it, you're going to pull more people out than push
I
away.
think so too. I
Honest to
think so
God.
too.
And that's the first step. If we can do that as men, we got a chance.
Mhm. Mm.
Okay, I'm off my soapbox now.
No, you're fine.
I told you I feel very passionately about this.
No, I do too, and
I'm tired of seeing
mm,
men suffer needlessly.
I am too. I am too. And I'm tired of losing good men to suicide.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Anyway, Joel says, I was around as a young man in the 60s. It was a stigma to be weak in any way. I have
Mhm,
lost several friends because of it. Therapy works, sharing your problems is okay, and kindness is okay.
mhm. And guys,
Joel was always so smart.
you're never too old for therapy. I
Never.
discovered therapy last year at 59 years old. I had never been to a therapist in my life.
Yeah.
I was one of those guys who was raised to believe that men don't do things like that.
Yeah.
We don't need things like that. Guess what?
Yeah.
I ask myself every day, where has this been all my life?
Yeah.
Because I am a better man because of therapy.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter
Mm.
what gets you there, just that you get there.
It's the strangest thing. My dad is 77,
Mhm.
and he has never really been one that, I mean, he would tell us he loved us, that kind of thing. He wasn't like,
Mhm.
emotionless, but he
Not
just never
shut
really
off, but
expressed his emotions.
Mhm.
But since my mom died 3 years ago, I tease him all the time. He's turned into a big old softy, and I absolutely love it. And he was telling
Mhm.
us the other day that he actually feels better because of it, because he just tells it. And it's in
Yep.
little things. Now, I have commented that maybe he should go to some kind of group therapy or something, and he's not ready for that, but I understand that it would be a lot at his he's a big, 77-year-old cowboy, and
Mhm.
yeah,
There's only
I
so
think the
much you're
older
gonna
the
do with that.
yeah, but he is at least expressing it, and he
Yeah.
does it in little things, like the other day whenever he said when I had 2 male cousins die in one day, and,
Yeah.
he said, "I'm running out of nephews." And just
Mhm.
the emotion behind that statement,
Mhm.
and I think he really felt better having said it, and that's
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't have to be we sit down and cry for hours. It can be
Right.
just admitting that there is like,
Just
"Whew,
acknowledging.
gosh."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
anyway, so Stacia says, "I think it's starting to change because more information is coming out about it." I think so too. We're getting
Yeah.
smarter.
And that's why I say we
Yeah.
gotta keep banging the drum and spreading the word.
Yeah. Heat My Short says that's BS. It takes courage to show real emotion instead of hiding behind a mask. He was talking about that when we were
Mhm.
saying that men hide. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Keela
right.
Keela and I did a show last week, and it was all about the masks that we wear, and that's very true.
Yeah. I remember that show.
Mhm.
Absolutely. He also says, I love our community. So many awesome people. That was
And you're one of them, buddy.
yeah, he's great. Says my dad loves man up and walk it off. Yeah. I could have
Mhm.
broken a leg and he would have probably told me to walk it off. The
Mhm.
one that we hear all the time here, and I even hear it as a girl, is just because of where we live and how I was raised and everything. It's cowboy up. So there's man
Yeah.
up and there's cowboy up.
Cowboy
And
up.
I'm like, I'm not a boy. I'm not a girl. I'm a cowgirl, not a cowboy. I'm just,
Right.
9 years old. I'm a girl. It's but I got the walk it off. I got the walk it
Mhm.
off with my dad too. I was the
Yeah.
biggest klutz when I was a kid, and I would fall down, and I agree with this, I could have broken a leg, and
Mhm.
my dad would have, said, "Walk it off." I played volleyball in high school,
Mhm.
and I was constantly jamming my fingers, and
Mhm.
he'd just come stomping out there and take my finger and just jerk it back into place, and I would just like, "Ooh,"
Good lord. Now get your ass
Yeah,
back out there and play.
"Get back out there and play, we're not done yet."
Oh.
The only time that he didn't do that was whenever I was rodeoing one time and the horse reared up and the
Mm.
saddle horn hit me in the
Mm.
private area,
Ouch.
and I just like, just off the horse and was out cold,
Yeah.
and
Oh my god.
all I remember is I woke up and he was carrying me off the out of the
Oh,
arena. He didn't make me
yikes.
get back on the horse. Not that day, I had to get back on the next day though. But the whole
Wow.
break a leg and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's my dad. That's why I'm saying that that's my dad, and he is
Right.
now
So that one
sharing
little
emotion.
act, yeah, that one
Yeah.
little act spoke
Mom
volumes for you.
having passed, and he has just it's like he's kind mom was, like, very open with her emotions, and now my dad is, and it doesn't make
Mhm.
him look wimpy at all. It makes him look stronger.
That's
In my
beautiful.
eyes, he looks stronger.
That's a beautiful thing.
So, yeah. I told my aunt the other day or no, I told Mischief, I said, Me and my dad have always been close, but I just adore him now. Just
Mhm.
absolutely adore him, and it is honestly because he has become more vulnerable,
Yeah,
which is something men fight against, and that's what we want.
exactly.
So, David says, "Anger and vengeance were demons that drove my life for most of it." Oh, I'm sorry.
Mm, that is sad.
Yeah, glad you're doing better now. Mischief says, "Stress kills" is not just a saying. Absolutely, no, it is
Very true.
absolutely.
Very true.
Absolutely. Stacia says, I believe that getting away from being my own worst enemy changes everything for me.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Women are too. Women and men
Oh,
both are their
yeah.
own worst enemies.
Oh, yeah.
But
Women are brutal on themselves, not to
I mean,
mention each other.
this yeah, we are mean to each other too. You think we're mean to ourselves?
Yeah.
Mhm. Joel says the best advice I ever got was admit to yourself when something feels wrong. Absolutely. I hadn't thought of it
Bingo.
that way, but yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Mare says, a question for the guys. I can't talk. What messages did you grow up hearing about what real men were how they were supposed to act? And did it help you or hurt you? Yeah, I had given her little chat prompts like she could ask questions
Mhm.
because sometimes I think it's good to keep them really thinking while we're talking, and something that she puts in the chat can really resonate with something that we're saying and
Mhm.
further the chat. Oh, my nose
Mhm.
itches. I need to take some Benadryl. I bet that'll make me sleep. Here's a good one. Blended families can be difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah,
see
it
and
can
like
be.
I said, I went into the whole, um, looking at the different dynamics of cultures and everything. I went into it pretty late last night when I was really supposed to be sleeping. But I do wanna dig into it further, uh, for this month, and we'll talk about it even if it's in a part of another, it might not be the only thing of the video, but it might be a part
Mhm.
of a video. And I think that I really wasn't really thinking about it that much, or I probably would have stayed awake even longer and dug into that last night. But yeah, blended families can be blended culturally or just anything, any kind of blended like what
Yeah.
about like inter I'm doing a whole thing on inter interable couples and how that all works where like one of the people in the relationship has disabilities and the other one
Oh,
doesn't and
okay.
stuff, and I
That's what I
want to
thought
look
you were
into how
referencing.
that kind of
Mhm.
what kind of dynamic that has too, like
Right.
say if like if the man is the one that is disabled and is at home, even if he's working for home, but if he's
Mhm.
at home and if the wife is out making more money or just out of the home or whatever the deal is, wonder how that has to do with it, and throwing the whole inner-abled thing into it too. I'm just it's like I said with Liz earlier, I just love, like,
Mhm.
layering stuff up and seeing how
Oh,
things
yeah.
affect things because that's real life, you
But
know?
it's you know what they you know where you get that from? That's from your newspaper days. You're learning how
Yeah.
you that's being able to look at a story from many different angles.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. And you brought up a very good dynamic there that I hadn't thought of. Um, oh, excuse me. When we're talking about blended families, we're not even
Mhm.
necessarily talking about different cultures. I mean, we can also.
Mhm.
I have a blended family, so my wife brought kids in from a previous relationship. I
Mhm.
brought a child in.
Mhm.
I had a handicapped child that I brought in, so that added a whole
That's
new
yeah, there's a
perspective to
lot.
that. But what you just brought up that I hadn't thought of is when we were talking about the cultural perceptions of, like, when you're out
Mhm.
grocery shopping with your kids and people look at you
Yeah.
funny. What about guys that work from home?
Yeah.
That's a new thing since
Absolutely.
COVID now too,
Yeah.
and a general misconception that I've been hearing a lot is that guys that work from home, somehow aren't really earning a living,
Yeah.
or they're,
And yet
playing on
they
their
are.
computer all day or whatever.
Yeah.
People look at you funny, like, "What do you're home in the daytime? Aren't you at work?"
Yeah.
"Oh, I work from home." And they go, "Hmm, you work
Mhm.
from home. Yeah, okay. What do you do,
Well,
play
see, like,
video games all day?"
where I'm sitting in this office, if you
Mhm,
look to my side, that's Mark's desk, and
mhm,
mine I have a little corner. I have a cubby, and he has, like,
mhm.
this L-shaped area, you know? But he has the actual job, and he works from
Mhm.
home on Friday and sometimes Saturday,
Oh,
and
okay.
sometimes on Sunday, depending on how busy they are. He's an engineer, but
Oh,
he
okay.
has, whenever I was going through cancer this last time and had chemo constantly and everything and needed a
Mhm,
ride and rides to the doctors and everything,
mhm,
he took a huge pay cut to take a lot of hours and just start going to work 4 days a week and
mm,
going to 40 hours a week versus making anywhere from 60 to 80 hours a week.
right.
And so now he's working a little bit more, about 60, um,
Mhm.
and working from home some, but yeah, people don't think he's working.
They
Like,
don't.
they don't, like, he is working. He gets up at the same time. He gets
Mhm.
dressed, he puts his shoes on. I mean, he gets just as he doesn't put his coat on in the
Oh,
winter,
okay.
that's the only difference, but he walks into the office instead of out to the truck,
Yeah.
and he works. He takes a lunch,
Mhm,
and he usually eats at his desk, which is what he does at work, and,
mhm,
he might come in and hoorah with me for a minute here or there, and tease me or just talk to me or, "Did you hear blah, blah, blah?" But
mhm.
people will do that at an office too,
Oh,
you
yeah. Absolutely.
and so, you know but, like, my dad, he doesn't see it that Mark is working. If he's
Mhm,
home, he thinks dad's like, "Well, he was home all weekend and he didn't get, this and this and this." I'm like, "Dad, he was working. He's on a
mhm,
deadline with this is $1,000,000, multi-million dollar contracts that have to go out on Monday, which means
mhm.
he's gotta work on the weekend till it's done and ready to go out on Monday."
Yeah.
So but I
Yeah, see,
understand what you're talking about, like
I
men
have a
that work at
hybrid job.
home.
I have a
Mhm,
hybrid job, and it only became that way after COVID,
mhm,
and because we've got a lot of younger employees now. We've got a lot of Gen Z employees that work in our HR
mhm,
department, and they have a completely different view of home work-life balance than
mhm.
the rest of us do. And
Yeah,
the times are having to change to adapt to them because they're
mhm.
becoming much more prevalent in the workforce now, as many of us are starting to retire. And, everything's changing now. So they went from
Yeah.
working at home 24/7 until the pandemic was over. And then now we work a hybrid schedule. So we're 3 days a week in the office, 2 days at home. And my mother-in-law just came in from Phoenix the other day. I've had this job
Mm,
for almost 3 years now. And she comes in, she taps on my office door and she cracks the door and she goes, "Oh, playing hooky again?" I said, "No." I
No,
said,
I'm
"I'm
at
actually
work.
I get more work done at home than I do in the
That's what
office
Mark
because I
says.
have less distractions. I have less people walking around wanting to talk to
Mhm.
me and, whatever." So, yeah, it's,
He says he gets way more done in the day and a half, 2 days a week that he works
yeah.
here versus what he works 4 days there.
Yeah,
I'm like,
because I just
"Man,
close the
tell
door to
him to
my
send you
office
home
and
every
I'm
day."
cut off from the world, but in the
Absolutely.
office, you've got 40 people milling
Yeah,
around and people want to
yeah,
stop by and ask you how your kids are doing, and yeah, it's just
yeah,
natural that you would get more
absolutely.
done at home,
I
but,
like this one too. I have a pet peeve when dad stays home with the kids, being one day or full time, that they are babysitting. Tell me how taking care of your own kids is babysitting. Exactly. That's not
No,
babysitting.
I don't think that would fly in most households.
No.
It's called
Mm,
having a spin,
yeah.
taking your turn on the ride.
So this was she was asking about
Oh, co-parenting?
yeah, co-parenting. Joel says
Mhm,
I would love it. In fact, at times that was true. No problem for me. We are both equal partners. I
mhm.
think Joel would be so fun to be married to. He's just so
Yeah, Joel is a unique guy. He's the
he
exception and
really
not the
is.
norm. But in a good way,
Yeah.
in a very good way.
So Incarnasol says, my partner does earn more than me, used to be almost 3 times as much. I'm
Whoa.
glad she is able to. My career got stonewalled years ago,
Mm.
and a path forward may finally be opening up soon.
Oh,
Wow.
good. Sending good thoughts
Wow.
your way, sir.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
3 times as much, wow. I might have a problem with
This is yeah.
that. That's a lot.
Let's just be
3
honest.
times more? That's a lot.
Yeah. But I think that's just a competitive thing.
Yeah,
I think that we do have
yeah,
that competitive thing, you
sure.
know?
We all have that.
Yeah. 'Cause I don't make hardly anything on YouTube because that's the only thing I'm doing right now that makes any money. I've usually got my hand in different
Oh.
things, and I haven't even been painting, and I usually bring in quite a bit of money with my paintings because 'cause I've sold, like,
Mm.
over 200 paintings.
Oh,
But,
wow.
yeah. So, anyway, but even though I don't make that much, I always make Mark check the bank to see if I got paid so he knows how much I made. Which is so ridiculous. I mean,
No, but
seriously,
it
like, he
it
makes
shows that
more.
you're contributing.
He makes more in, like well, sometimes he makes like, this time, I probably made what he makes in a day. But sometimes, it's nowhere near that.
But it's
So,
something, it's the point,
it just makes you
you're
feel good whenever you've
contributing,
been
yeah,
somebody that has contributed your entire adult life, and then suddenly you're not.
absolutely.
And for a year and a half, I laid up in the house, not able to do anything, and so now if I make a little bit of money, I'm like, "Hey, did you notice that I made a little bit of money?" And what did I do? Bought him a weed eater, bought him some hiking
Bought him a
boots, bought
bunch of
him some
stuff, yeah.
jeans. Yeah,
That wasn't lost on me, I caught that when you were telling me
yeah,
that, I'm see you
yeah,
waste all this time to earn that little bit of money, and what do? You
yeah.
spend it all on him.
But he does the same with me. He's, like, driving
Yeah,
himself nuts what he's gonna get me for my
of
birthday, and I
course.
said, "I don't care. Take me to lunch and sit there and talk to me." That's
Mhm.
plenty.
Spend
And
some
Carnosaur
time with
says,
me,
"Part of
yeah.
my career was stonewalled. I kept a stay-at-home dad job, work from home, while she traveled to work. No option to do things like extend my education during that
Mhm.
period. I had to stay home."
Understand.
Hey, there is no shame there. You were not
There's no
just
shame.
staying home.
As the kids say in
So,
Carnisoul, there's no shame in your game.
nope, absolutely. So, comment, my father-in-law was 20 years older than my mother-in-law. He retired
Whoa.
and did most of the cooking, and they were
Hmm,
good together.
there you go.
That's great. That really is. That is great.
Right.
When my mom got sick, my dad did most of the cooking and stuff, and so it was kind of, that kind of a situation where the roles reversed. I
Yeah,
mean, it was due to illness, but
right.
she too had always worked
Mhm.
and not made what he made, but made a good living. And, so their roles flip-flopped when she got sick, and that was for about 3 years that their
Mhm.
roles were flip-flopped to where he did unless I was taking taking 'em stuff, he was doing most of the cook or my daughter. he was
Mhm.
doing most of the cooking, he was doing most of the cleaning, and I said, "Well, it was good practice, Dad, because now it's all on you." And he's like,
Mhm.
"Yeah," he said, "You don't know what I would do to have your mom cook me one more meal." And I'm just like, "Oh,"
Mm.
you know?
Yeah,
He
right to
did
the
tell me
heart.
the other day that I made something that he wished that "I wish your mama woulda made me that. She never made me that." And it was steak and onion quesadillas.
Mm.
And I'm like he was like,
Oh,
"How
I
did
know
you
how
do
much you
that?"
love a quesadilla.
Yeah, and an enchilada, anything Mexican. We're going
Yeah.
for Mexican tomorrow and maybe the next day too for my birthday.
We had a we had a team meeting at work yesterday, and we had it catered by a really, really good Mexican restaurant in town.
Mm.
They make these mini chimichangas. They're so good.
Oh,
I could eat them by the dozen.
yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what that was called. Last night I made it was with, it was pork, and I cooked it
Mhm.
all day long with some onions and peppers and a little bit of seasoning stuff in it, and then put it
Mm.
on flour tortillas with some, cilantro and a little bit of cheese, and it was
Ooh,
so good.
that
It was
does
so
sound good.
yeah. So we're not a Mexican family, but we are a Mexican food family.
Mhm. Me too.
So Barbie M04 says, "Sometimes in our marriage, I made more than hubby, and other times he made more than me. Didn't bother either one of us. Main thing is we
Mhm.
had food, a home, and the bills were paid, and we're happy." That
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah, Barbie,
And I
once you learn to get out of your own way, life can be really good.
absolutely,
But that's the key.
absolutely.
You gotta get out of your own way.
Stacia says, "I remember my dad was irate the year my mom made more money than he did. I didn't have a good
Yeah,
relationship with my dad. Bars and booze were his best friends." I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Mine too,
So
Stacia, unfortunately.
we are almost down to the end of these. Mayor says, "I earned more than hubby in his last 3 years of him working. Never bothered him. Just meant that he had enough for
Yeah.
retirement."
At that point, you're just stockpiling cash.
Yeah. That's what we're in the process of doing now. We're trying to
Yeah.
pay off everything, get it to where we really lower our, what we have going out every month. So
Mhm.
that's what we're up for right now. It's going pretty good.
Yeah, do me a favor, Susie. Tell him that that his, Social Security topped out at 67. It can't go any
Uh-huh.
higher, so he needs
Okay.
to get his
So he
ass
can't
retired.
work anymore.
Tell him the excuse that he's
Man.
been using for years has played
That's
itself out.
true. It's played itself out, which
Now he's
I
just
just
doing it
want him
because he
to
likes it.
retire. I know when he just gripes about it, but I think he likes it. I really do think he
Yeah, he
likes it.
does.
I mean, he's
Well,
got a
it go
great job, and
well, and
I
he's
he
obviously good
worked
at
since he
it.
was 16. He's worked since in this industry. He's
Yeah.
worked, I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
yeah, he's
So
worked
it's
as
what
a
he knows. And not
I'm
only
like,
that, it goes back to what we've been talking about. It
yeah.
goes back to your usefulness as a man. There's a
Mhm,
statistic, and I don't have it handy, but there's a
mhm.
statistic of how many men die within a year of retirement, and it's
Yeah,
out of
it's
pure boredom. It's because they
yeah.
feel like they don't have any useful life left. If I'm
When
not
my
working
dad
and I'm not
retired
providing, I'm nothing.
My dad worked 33 years at the school here where we live at the public school,
Mhm.
and I mean, he had a whole career as a cowboy before that. When we were in California, he was literally a cowboy on a horse every day, you know,
Mm.
12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week,
Wow.
and, I mean, hard on the back and the knees.
Oh, yeah.
But then he
Can
went to
imagine.
work at the school, and he worked there for 33 years. He's the head of maintenance and over all the buses. He was the
Oh,
bus
wow.
mechanic, the head of maintenance. He put a new roof on the whole school.
Oh
He
my
put the
gosh.
gym floor in 3 times while he was there.
Wow.
I mean, it was crazy. But
Mhm.
anyway, when he retired that first year, I thought he was gonna work himself to death
Mm.
because he would go back up to the school, and he would
Trying
still
to
do stuff up
compensate.
there.
Yeah.
And then he thought he had to, I mean, this place never looked better, it was perfect, it was always
Mhm.
great, everything looked perfect, and I thought, "He's gonna work himself to death out of boredom," and I said,
It's hard
"Dad,
for us. Our
knock
careers are
it
what
off."
define us as men.
Mhm,
It's true.
mhm. Barbie
Mhm.
says, "Some of the information that John and Susie are presenting is quite surprising." I thought so too, there was some of it
I
that I thought was surprising.
Some of it
Mischief
shocked
says,
me
"I'm
too.
adopted. I did grow up not knowing who I am."
Mm.
Wow. She was talking about that when we were talking about the Native Americans.
Mm. Yeah.
And then Barbie said, "Well said, John. Men need to talk to each other and their sons as well." I think that's the perfect
Mhm.
ending place. I really do. That
Absolutely.
I mean, basically just about sums up everything that we've said in the last 2
I
hours,
couldn't have
is
said it
an
any
ending.
better myself, Barbie.
I know. I know. I
Mhm.
think that's wonderful. Well, guys, I'm gonna go, and John, I appreciate you being here so much. You have just been
Yeah.
such a friend, and I do wanna do some more shows with you. I'll get with you on some of the ones that I've been looking into and kinda see what you think, kinda get a man's point of view on it, and see if you think
Thank
that it's something important to men,
Mhm.
because what I think might be important might not be that important to men,
Right.
so I wanna get your opinion on it.
Thank you very
And,
much for tackling this
yeah,
very difficult
yeah.
subject that's very near and dear to my
I
heart.
think
I
it's
appreciate
very
it.
important. I really
Mhm.
do. I think it's very important. So I really
Mhm.
appreciate it. So,
Okay.
guys, we're going to go and we will see you tomorrow. I've got another show tomorrow.
Have a great
I
night,
can't remember what it
everybody.
is. Every night I just can't ever remember what it is, but I got another one.
All
Oh, I
right.
think it's about religion actually, like the good things and bad things that happened in religion or something. So it's crazy, but should
Something
be
like
fun.
that, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Okay. Well, I'll see you
All
guys
right.
tomorrow.
Have a
I'll
good
see
night,
you
guys.
later too, John.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye.
Hope you enjoyed the show. So glad you were here. We meet here most days. We're but first coffee and you're welcome here. We talk about hard subjects, but we also laugh a lot. If you have a loss or win, we will cheer for you. We're but first coffee, and you are safe here. So hit those like and subscribe buttons, notifications set to all. You don't wanna miss a show, because this is your home to y'all. So hit those like and subscribe buttons, notifications set to all. You don't wanna miss a show, because this is your home to y'all. So hit those like and subscribe buttons.